So. Dann starten wir mal mit der ersten Live-Reaction und Nachbesprechung von Around the Verse vom, was haben wir, dem 8.9.2017. Wenn man jetzt noch Sound hat. Das wäre natürlich auch praktisch. So.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Around the Verse, our weekly look at Star Citizen's ongoing development. I'm Sandy Gardner.
And I'm Jeremiah Lee.
Nice to have you here today. On today's episode, we investigate the new stamina system gameplay and learn how various actions will be affecting your avatar in-game.
But before we dive in, let's focus on the most important action happening around the offices, Alpha 3.0.
That means it's time to check in with Eric Chiron Davis and the rest of the team for this week's Burn Down.
Burn down.
Burn down.
Welcome back to Burn Down, our weekly show dedicated to reviewing progress on issues blocking the release of Star Citizen Alpha 3.0. Last week, we ended at 94 total must-fix issues, which was prioritized as 9 blockers, 62 criticals, 21 highs, 2 moderates, and no trivials. So let's check in with the team to see how we're progressing.
So main things are out 3 at the moment. As we're drilling down more on the PTU/Evocati must-fix issues, Todd and I and Paul as well. Got some more triaging that we're still doing. We're aiming to get through at least the criticals before we're definitely signed off on going, yeah, these are the must-fix issues. But in the meantime, I'm aiming to send out an email to the team about the must-fix issues we currently have. Those are the ones we want to start working on in order to push forward for Evocati. So focus on those.
The thing about game development is that with bug fixing and particularly drilling down on the must-fix issues that we now have, is that like most things in life, you can have good days and you can have bad days with stuff. Developers can have a really good day where they just pull at a thread of a bug, you know, something they've been working on for a little while, and all of a sudden they kind of have that eureka moment, they pull on it and then everything else just unravels and it allows them to fix the next few bugs stacked up behind that. On the flip side of things, you can potentially have a really bad day where a feature's got a little bit further, developers have put some more fixes in, given its QA over to testing, and QA goes in, starts testing it, and they can go, well, that doesn't work, there's an issue here, there's one there, there's one there. Or you can get a particular issue, again with a feature or anything really, in that you can come up against one issue and then extrapolate that out, and QA will just go down the rabbit hole essentially and go, right, well, if this doesn't work, well, how about if I do it like this, and what happens if I do this, and what happens there and there and there, and you can end up from that one just initial find, you can end up with another 6 or 7 bugs.
We noticed that there are these occasional black flashes, as you can see one there in Grand Barter. So like as we were going around, we kind of we noticed that just as you approach these lights, they get more and more extreme. So what we're seeing here is actually it's usually the lens flare that's just spreading a problem out, but what's usually happened is that something is divided by 0, or it's taken the square root of a negative number, or just something impossible. And so having done 1 pixel wrong, it then just smears it all over the screen. So you turn it off and there's just a little bit of it still kind of visible. And going right up to it, I think the depth of field starts picking it up as well. But you can just see there are these tiny little stipple effects. So we know that the fog uses this sort of like jittered, like per pixel jittering. So this kind of matches the pattern. So like I think if you turn off fog, it goes away. So it's probably fog. And what we realized is this is basically, when it's doing the rectangular lights, what it has to do is it has to, at one point it takes the position that it's sampling and it finds the nearest point on the light near to it, and then it tries to get the direction to that, so it sort of subtracts the 2 distances and divides by that distance. So if you've actually managed to sample it dead on the middle of, like, somewhere on the plane of the light. It ends up with a 0, it divides by 0, it just screws everything. So actually, we just put in a very small fix. Yeah. So literally just checking to see if it's 0. If it is 0, we just use a completely different vector it's not exactly the right vector that it should use, but it's not visibly different. So yeah, ta-da, it works.
These last few weeks, we've been working on some shopkeepers and the admin office worker is sort of like a general purpose location or NPC we have whenever you need to deliver or pick up something from a location that has lots of kind of sub, like a station or a truck stop or something. This will be like a general point where it'll go there before it gets, you know, delivered out to where it's supposed to be in the station. And as you can see, we have one of our NPCs here who I just got some new animations from Dave over there, which should hopefully fix this stretching to talk issue, which has been cursing us from being able to test it properly or use it properly.
For 3.0, we're reworking the turrets for all the ships. And not only the ships, but also, you might have seen it in the rover as well. So with the turrets, we've added the ability to, for the designers to define dead zones and active zones to control how fast the turret turns back and forth. And then recently we've added the feature to have you get into a seat and have the turret rotate while it's getting ready for you to shoot at enemies or other pilots. Turrets are basically like a mini vehicle where they have seats in them and other seat components. And so our existing code can't tell the difference between a turret seat and a ship seat. And so it just chooses whatever it finds first. So we have to define, no, for this turret, we want you to use the turret seat. Or for the ship, we just want you to use the turret.
We got this Jira ticket for a bug that you were randomly dying within visiting our outposts on one of our moons. It happened in all of them, so we had to open up the editor, as you can see here, and find out what the issue was. And if you look here, you see that we have these blue boxes. I made them a bit higher than the outpost for this example, but this is the atmosphere this is the box that contains our room system, which contains atmosphere and actually air, so you can breathe within our locations. But as you can see, there's a gap between two of them, or between all of them, while it should look like this. Because when they're not touching, that means the air actually just goes nowhere, which makes it like disappear in time. So you would randomly die at different times because you wouldn't know when the air actually runs out. And that was the bug report we got, so we just found out that, okay, they're not connected, we need to fix this issue. Our first solution was actually just to make all the rooms bigger, to make sure they touched each other, as you can see in this example here. But we soon realized, straight away realized that that also means you can breathe outside. You can technically stand on this window, even though it's outside, you can still breathe and survive without a helmet, which also shouldn't happen because you're on one of the moons that doesn't have air you can breathe. So what we had to do was use the custom shape tool that Lumberyard provides and actually make these shapes fit so they go out an extra bit where the door comes, so the rooms still touch each other, but they don't reach outside, so you can actually not stand on the outside also being able to breathe.
At the time of filming this, we reduced our total must-fix issues by 18, which brings us to 76 issues stopping this first release. At the same time, we've checked in a total of 773 new updates to the 3.0 branch. And now this week, we've also made some more important decisions on what we'd like our first round of non-CIG testers to help us evaluate, as well as provide feedback on and keep polishing and fixing. We're really going through this release with a fine-tooth comb, making sure all of the new tech and features work harmoniously together. So while we're all passionately working to knock out the mountain of blockers, as Matt said, uncovering one thread may unravel and reveal a whole myriad of issues that we always hope will knock out more than one big issue at a time. But putting my personal dreams aside, As we're completing and polishing features, those numbers are going to change, and sometimes dramatically, sometimes higher, sometimes lower. So come back next week to see how we're doing here on Burndown.
For a more detailed look at what bugs we've been smashing, be sure to check out our 3.0 production schedule report, which we update every week on our website.
Now it's time to talk stamina. The dev team has worked hard to build a robust stamina system that takes numerous factors into consideration to provide a more realistic experience.
For example, if you sprint into combat, you'll discover that your aim will suffer due to the deep breaths being drawn by the character.
Or worse, that you don't have the stamina needed to escape. If the situation goes south, creating a system that requires players to think strategically about their movements was one of the many goals the team had to tackle.
To see what else had to be considered when designing the system, let's take a look at this week's feature.
Da bin ich mal gespannt. Ein bisschen was hat man davon ja schon gehört.
The actor status system started life as a much smaller piece, which we're trying to figure out how to breathe in space, how to breathe, also how to suffocate in space, how that works. The initial implementation was a pretty dodgy thing we did just so we can get to zero out the door. We're putting some kill triggers outside the airlocks just to make sure people don't walk outside in their t-shirts. Obviously, people managed to do that because of our wall collisions not being 100% there, and people ended up floating in space in their t-shirts. Not such a good thing. So eventually we started working heavily on the system, but there were a lot of other things that had to come online before this system could actually be fully functional. The main thing that had to come online was our room system. Our room system defines the space of every room, what the atmospheric composition is in each of these rooms, and how air travels from one room to the other. The other problem we had to deal with was how do doors opening and closing react to this. Our doors initially did not support this feature, so we had to redo all our doors, all our airlocks, elevators, so that when a door opens, it actually allows gases to travel from one room and another.
The stamina component defines a default stamina cost, a default stamina regeneration, as well as the requirements to maintain optimal stamina regeneration. On every breath, the stamina component queries the room system for the atmosphere composition and volume of the current room. Then replaces a fraction of the oxygen in the room with carbon dioxide and updates the stamina regeneration based on the amount of oxygen replaced. If there's no oxygen in the current room, there's no regeneration and the player has a limited amount of time before suffocating. The stamina component in, we were able to implement a life support system for the player to survive in space by turning the player's helmet itself into a room. So the player automatically enters this room when equipping the helmet, and the stamina system can maintain optimal regeneration because the room queries will always find the helmet. We also added a gas purifier that removes noxious gases from the helmet, including carbon dioxide, and a gas tank that maintains the pressure in the helmet by feeding it oxygen.
When it comes to having no helmet on or simply having a helmet that does not have a breathing system, you will not be connected to your suit. You will breathe whatever is available in the room, and that will have some consequences, especially when you get into places that either have low pressure or not enough oxygen in the atmospheric composition in the room, or simply noxious or poisonous gases in the room. So that will create an interesting gameplay, and we're trying to make sure the player doesn't always keep his helmet on. It should become fairly costly to keep a helmet on, as this brings a lot of interesting gameplay possibilities to Star Citizen, where you have to rush to a suit locker, get your suit quickly on because your ship is getting depressurized and there's no other way. You either get to that suit or you die.
Now, the main stamina consumer is the player's movement. While the player is moving, their stamina drains depending on stance, equipment weight, and movement slope. So walking up the stairs is more expensive than walking down the stairs.
So basically every action the player does consumes stamina. If you're sprinting, jumping, crouching, vaulting over obstacles, that will consume stamina. Even idling consumes stamina, just on a very low scale compared to the other actions. We want to encourage the player to think tactically when they perform actions. We don't want them to just constantly run, bunny hop everywhere. We're trying to achieve a level of realism here. Basically people who will constantly abuse their actions and not think about what they're doing will get punished, while people who are mindful of every little thing they do will get an advantage. Consider yourself sprinting into combat for, I don't know, 30 seconds, and when you get into combat, you're so out of breath that you're just cannon fodder for everyone else. Your aiming will be really bad, your recoil will be unmanageable. You won't even be able to get out of trouble because you don't have enough stamina to sprint away from the mess you got yourself into. So this way, people who arrive fresh in combat will be way more effective than people who just rush there and not achieve much. Walking instead of sprinting will still consume some stamina, but your regeneration, if nothing's wrong with your character, like chest wound or something like this, they will still regen more than you consume when you walk. But you also have the option of completely stopping, and when you completely stop, then you get the maximum regen because your character is not doing anything. He's still consuming stamina because he's idling, because we want to start consuming oxygen out of your oxygen tank. Basically, if you just idle in 2 hours in space, you might run out of oxygen. But if you sprint for 10 minutes, you might run out of oxygen. It's the same because you start consuming way more.
The player abilities are the secondary consumers of stamina. An ability consists of a type, a stamina requirement, a stamina cost, and 2 checkpoints in the game code saying, okay, this is where this ability starts and this is where it ends. You can only access this part of the code if your stamina is higher than the requirement for it. The cost can also be processed in different ways. There's instant cost, like for jumping or vaulting. There's lasting cost, like for sprinting and holding breath. And there's also conditional cost, which is instant cost that depends on what other abilities are running at the time. And all that was good until we added equipment weight into the mix. Jumping with heavy armor and a railgun on your back on Jupiter is a lot more expensive than jumping with a light armor on the moon. So this meant all abilities suddenly had variable costs. So the designers couldn't reliably adjust the ability cost to ensure the player experience. We fixed that by taking the remaining stamina into account instead of current stamina. So instead of saying you need 20% stamina to be able to jump, we are saying jumping is not allowed to drain your stamina below 10%. To show the player status, we are using different combinations of post effects. The problem is when several status conditions are using the same post effect, like for example, when bleeding at low health and low stamina, and all these conditions modify the brightness. So we needed each effect to be noticeable enough on its own, but also not go crazy when stacking with each other. So we implemented a centralized component that runs with customizable rules. With a new implementation, you can say, for example, all contrast modifiers after the first one have their strength reduced by 50%, and together they can never exceed a certain value. The buff system has been in the game for a while, but we never really had a reason to use it extensively. Buffs are pieces of data that consist of a type, a value, and sometimes a time limit. Their purpose is to allow virtually anything in the game to modify the player status using a simple interface. The actor buff component receives all the buff requests and automatically stacks the buffs of the same type together and broadcasts the new value over the network. Bleeding is implemented as a debuff in game right now. When a body part takes damage, it applies a stack of bleeding with a value of 1. That means the player will take 1 damage per second from bleeding. Taking damage to another body part applies an additional stack of bleeding, so the player will now bleed for 2 health every second. Healing one of these body parts will remove the corresponding buff. The buff component, together with the stamina, health, breathing, abilities, and G-force components, make up what we call the actor status system. We use it to change the gameplay experience depending on what happens to the player. So for example, in the new version 3.0, taking damage to the arm will affect the player's combat abilities like recoil and weapon sway. Damaging the legs will affect navigation, reduce the movement speed, and increase the stamina cost for jumping and sprinting. Damaging the torso will decrease your stamina pool and regeneration. Running out of stamina or pulling too many Gs will make the player pass out, and so on.
One of the important things for us was that the player understands what is happening to them. Just having stamina there is not enough. The player constantly needs to be aware by looking at his screen what condition the character is in. We had to employ a lot of smaller tricks in getting the player to figure out, oh, I'm running out of breath, I should stop a bit, catch my breath, or oh, my oxygen tank is out. So we had to go add a lot of visual effects on the screen when you're running out of breath. We had to add a lot of audio, breathing. We had a lot of animation, additives happening to the player. We had to affect the player's aiming, moving up and down with every breath. It's also a lot of UI work that had to go into this to tell the player what's going on at every step of the way. On your visor, you get information about what's in your suit. What's your condition, how much stamina do you have, what's in your suit, what's in your tank, what's in your suit, what your stamina is. But if you want information about the outside, then it's the mobiGlass right now. That gives you all the information about the room that you are in.
My role based on the active status system was to outline the sound design elements of it, speaking with design and code and animation, and basically coming up with a sound design system that would be able to play breathing sound effects in relation to what the active status system was doing. I worked closely with Ewan Brown, who's one of our audio programmers, and together we kind of started to build this system, be able to give audio feedback to what the active status system is doing, so the player kind of hears what the player character is doing. The audio component drives the animation of the character for the breathing. That is going to sync, so the audio will sync with the actual animation of the character breathing, and also on the mobiGlass you've got the heart rate monitor, and we will be syncing with that as well. So heart rate, breathing rate will all be in sync. It's all driven from the same system. The first step for me was doing a bit of research to find out what breathing styles we're going to need and their relative speeds and characteristics. So I thought the best thing to do was to record myself rather than getting some talent in, because I didn't know if it was going to work. And what I did first of all is set up a tempo map. I decided to go along and just record myself at different beats per minute, BPM. So we started at 20 beats a minute, and then every couple of bars I increased the speed by 5 BPM. So it ranged from 20 BPM up to 190 BPM. So in that actual time, we went from a 3-second inhale and 3-second exhale up to a 0.3 of a second inhale and 0.3 of a second exhale, which is really, really fast. So yeah, a lot of fun recording that. The benefit of recording to the tempo map is you got a lot of variation and you got a lot of assets dead very, very quick. However, the downside was I didn't realize how breathing rapidly without needing to, how much that could mess you up. I did nearly pass out a couple of times at the upper end of the BPM scale. Fortunately, it didn't. Once I got enough material, what I did is I edited it all together. So I split all the inhales and all the exhales for the specific BPM and then bounced them all out of Reaper. So I had individual inhale assets and exhale assets. The active status system sonically consists of 3 main elements. So you've got the breathing styles, which are the different types of breathing. Then we've got the grunts and vocalizations. And then we've also got the SFX support. So that's like sound effects relating to your suit, like alarms and like UI elements and stuff like that. Currently, we have 13 breathing styles. That will most likely increase. That's currently split across 2 suites. So we've got a breathing suite for FPS, so we're just running around. We also have a breathing suite for piloting, because in those 2 different situations, you will be using different styles of breathing. So in FPS, you'll be having normal breathing, recovery breathing, when you're fatigued, taking damage and injury. But then when you're piloting, we use specific breathing styles for that situation. One of them is called AGSM, which is anti-G-force straining maneuver, also known as the HIC technique. And it's a technique pilots use to stop passing out over high Gs. It kind of like force their blood pressure to remain high in like their head and stuff like that. So when you're pulling really high Gs, you'll start hearing them going, HIC! What's loads of reference material on the kind of the stresses and strains these pilots put themselves through is insane. So the game actually calls discrete inhale and exhale triggers, which is great. The level of fidelity that we've got is brilliant. So the active status system and the audio component in tandem pass particular values in relation to stamina, O2, health, even like composition of the oxygen and the atmosphere in the room. That feeds into our audio component, which I control via DataForge. There's a DataForge record that I can control the breathing suites, the breathing styles, and all the conditional transitions. And through that, I can dictate which breathing style is played at a certain time and how that breathing style correlates to the values that are being passed from the actor status system. So the actual audio exists in WISE, which is our audio middleware tool. With these are currently 13 different styles of breathing. They all live in their own discrete actor mixer hierarchy. Within that actor mixer, there's a blend container which contains inhales, and there's a blend container that includes exhales. So they'd be triggered independently, one after the other. Within that, they each have a range of random containers ranging from the 20 BPM all the way up to 190 BPM. And then the blend containers actually respond to an RTPC, which is a real-time parameter control, which takes the values from the actor status system and the audio component, and that selects which of the BPM breaths it should play. Then the game calls the play trigger, which is like play, breath, inhale, or play, breath, recovery, exhale. It triggers it from WISE, and that's what you hear in the game. The animation for the breathing is driven off the data forge record, and you control the curves of the breathing, which can influence the curves of the animation. For audio, it represented a unique challenge for us because normally we're at the end of the stream, we're downstream process. Normally everything gets done, we put audio to it. This is the first time that I've ever worked on a system where audio drives another feature. So audio is actually driving animation, so we have to make sure we sync with animation very closely, because normally our footprint is post. It's never normally, it directly impacts the input of another department. You have to sync, right? You can't have a breathing going in and out and the animation going out and in.
I was involved with the breathing animations, the procedural breathing animations, so making the player's arms and chest move up and down as he breathes, and mostly focusing on getting in sync with the audio and getting the feedback there for the player once they're tired or exhausted. So the system itself is fairly complex in the back end. There's a lot of sort of variables involved and lots of different sort of states and levels to it. But from the player's point of view, we try and keep it as simple and easy to read as possible, because obviously it's all about player feedback. It's all about them being able to see, oh, I'm tired, oh, I'm exhausted, I need to slow down a bit, I need to stop exerting myself, and sort of communicating that to them sort of simply and easily, while also having the complexity of the back end system and having these sort of more advanced systems behind it. It doesn't slow you down, but it will tell you that you're more tired. You won't be, if you're running along, you won't run slower, but you'll run heavier. The audio will get more intense, you'll breathe heavier, your arms will move more. It'll have more of an effect of when you're trying to aim at someone. If you're exhausted, your aim's going to be all over the place. Obviously this is it's fairly subtle at the sort of normal stamina levels. You won't really notice it. That's the whole point of the breathing system. If you're doing things normally, you don't notice you're breathing. It's only when you're properly exhausted, when you've really been exerting yourself, you will know about it. You'll know you're panting, your arms are moving about, your chest is heaving, and you will be exhausted. From the breathing animation point of view, the primary feedback for the breathing is the audio. That's the thing normally in games, that you hear yourself breathing, that's how you know you're tired. The main thing was getting the animations to match up with this audio. We can't use just a baked animation because the breath lengths are different. You breathe deeper or shallower, you take long breaths, you take deep breaths, you take short breaths. So we thought about maybe having animations captured and then blending between them and lengthening them or shortening them, but in the end we had to go procedural. And the way we did it was, we've got curve data that comes directly from Maya, directly from the animators tool. We pull that into DataForge via a script that was written by Rob Howes down in Derby, and then that data is then read with the game and it can be played back. We can adjust the speed of it at runtime. So basically, as the audio tells us this is going to be the length of your next breath, we go, that's how long the animation has to last. It also ties into the aim pose system. So in Lumberyard, you've got an aim pose over the top of the player, which determines where he's aiming. So that plays on, it's about the last layer it plays on the animation. And it points the gun where he's looking. It adjusts him if he's looking straight up, it points the gun straight up. If he's looking down, he looks straight down. And obviously it's adjusted for different weapons. You get different pivot points and such. Using the procedural animation, we can put it over the top of the aim pose. So if you're looking up, you'll breathe correctly, it'll be the right direction. And it all works smoothly and it works non-obtrusively.
As we started only with a breathing system, we thought our job is mostly done, but eventually we were asked whether we can add the G-Force system to go through the same process, because it's basically just forces acting on the player and causing various good or bad conditions on the player.
So the current G-force simulation, the one in the live version right now, is very accurate, it's very realistic. It goes as far as simulating how the human body naturally adapts under the effect of G-forces. However, moving forward, we need a more generic simulation that works with any type of entity in any context, not only human players piloting a ship. And we need it simple enough to be able to run on all entities at all times. For example, we need unsecured cargo to fall over when the ship accelerates. Our new solution monitors the accumulated velocity of the entity and all the physics grids there are inside of. So we take the linear and angular velocity of the entity, transform them into the parent space, and add the parent's velocities and transform them into the parent space, and so on until there's no parent. Then we can track any change in the accumulated velocity. Any change in velocity means acceleration, and acceleration means G-force.
This kind of became the birth of the actor status system, which is a larger unifying system, kind of brings together every little thing that can happen to the actor, to the player, or to other characters. So we wanted that all the effects that appear on the screen, all the things that happen to him go through the same filter, as we don't want them to conflict with each other. If we would have made separate system for every little thing that can happen to the player, let's say he's hungry, or he's thirsty, or he's affected by G-forces, or he's out of breath, each of those would have conflicted with the other, and that would have been a nightmare for all of us. So that's why we had to unify, and this became the actor status system.
It seemed to take off, and every single idea from how the player reacts to G-force and exhaustion and being able to do abilities like jumping and jumping over ledges are all affected by this. So we've got how the grunts and the other sounds in his dialogue all need to interact with the breathing, so it's become rather complicated. So I've set up a system in the code to link quite a few different systems. The lungs of the players, how he animates and how that affects the wobble of the gun, need to be driven by the breathing, and that needs to be in sync with the audio that we've provided. The challenges we had were, we'd start off with something simple and it would work fine for one scenario. So we'd basically just try sprinting, and when you stop sprinting, it quickly became apparent that it didn't sound very realistic. So he would just quickly start breathing at a normal speed, and we would expect him to sound exhausted for a lot longer. So to fine-tune all of that, to how long it takes to recover and how he sounds when he's recovering, led on to new styles of breathing. So that one was the recovery style of breathing. So when you sound exhausted, you take deeper, longer breaths until you've recovered. I set up a system using our usual user interface for the dev team, DataForge, and we started off with just basically it looks like a table of numbers and parameters for the different ranges of breathing speeds and lung volumes that would need to be taken in to give the player the amount of oxygen back into his system to make him recover his stamina, which is the ultimate goal of the breathing. Given the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere or the room, we calculate how much stamina he can regenerate. So for each breathing style, we tend to have a Bezier curve to make it possible to fine-tune the amount of stamina that he's got or needs, translates into how fast he needs to breathe or how deep he needs to breathe. Quickly from there, we realized we had so many different styles of breathing, like when you're injured or recovering from exhaustion or piloting a ship and experiencing high G-force. The transitions between these became so complicated to manage, we couldn't just do a straight interpolation in between each one. I set up a new thing which we termed a breathing suite. So that was a flow graph setup to join them all together with different transition nodes. In the transition node itself, we'd have a flexible number of conditions that would make it follow the different parts of the flow graph to a different style. So we've expanded that with so many parameters like checking the health or the stamina or the G-force or whether you're blacking out. And we can get it to react in so many ways that make it sound realistic that I think we've got more than 14 different styles, and it really gives the player a feeling that something realistic's happening.
So the active status system in general tracks a whole lot of variables, things like exertion, you have stamina, of course, and that all ties into the room system, which has oxygen, but a room may not have just oxygen, it has other things, might not have a full pressurized atmosphere. So it's important for the UI to sort of communicate state of your surroundings are, what kind of oxygen is present in your current atmosphere, basically. So if you go into an airlock and, you depressurize, then your oxygen tank won't refill anymore. Or if you're on a planet with low oxygen or there's a low atmospheric pressure, then you know that your oxygen tank probably wouldn't refill as quickly as it would in a regular atmosphere. One of the big things that we track in the UI is basically an ECG graph, which is an indication of your stamina. So if you run up a flight of stairs or you sprint for a long time, then you obviously see your heart rate going up, your ECG graph getting a bit more intense. So then that kind of lets you know that you're exerting a lot of energy and you're maybe take a rest if it's getting too high. So it's cool because it's not like an exact value that you're seeing. It's a bit more indirect, which is kind of cool. And then it's a nice visual in terms of the UI as well. This display on your mobiGlas, and we're also going to be displaying it on the visor as well. So, I mean, obviously, in kind of a very important piece of information that you pretty much want to have most of the time and be available to you at all times. So we have it in the HUD, but there's additional information in the mobiGlas that we have. Obviously, another good thing to know.
Hä? Suit Oxygen. Ist es der Tank für den Treibstoff fürs EVA oder ist es wirklich Sauerstoff, der dann in den Raumanzug gepumpt werden muss? Aber das wäre ja dann Schwachsinn. Komisch. Kurze Pause. Ich hole mir mal schnell einen Kaffee. So, wieder da mit einem Kaffee. Geht's weiter.
Know about active status is what is the state of your surroundings. So in your immediate atmosphere, because you can go in and out of rooms. Different planets might have different atmospheres, different atmospheric pressures, different atmospheric compositions. And that all affects how quickly your gas tank would refill. Let's say if you're running low on oxygen or something and you want to refill it, or whether or not it's safe to take off your helmet or not. You can pull up your mobi-glass to see, kind of like in that movie, The Martian, where it's checking his status.
For planning ahead, this will be only dependent on the tools the players have. We want to give them the most basic tool, which is the mobi-glass, to just check what is available in their room right now, but they might have access to some better equipment, which gives them, they can scan 2-3 rooms ahead or look at the door and go, what's on the other side. That will help them choose whether they open a door, whether they don't. Also on the doors, the refactoring of the doors, we have indicators now that what the conditions are on the other side. You will always get a warning. There will be a red light if something's wrong on the other side. You will not be able to, you will be able to, but it's your problem if you just want to open a door to outer space. But the game kind of gives you the information. It's up to you to whether you use it or not, and you will suffer the consequences if you don't. Work on the actor status system will not stop here. This will be a long, ongoing process of adding multiple things to the conditions that can affect the player. We're talking here from small little things of basically getting poisoned from whatever's in the room to getting drunk, needing to go to the toilet, all of the little things that can affect the player temporarily. And then we can expand this to go even to stuff like long-term diseases and all kind of depressurization sickness, radiation sickness, and all these things that won't be something that the player can get rid of instantly. They will have to go find a medical specialist in the game that can treat those things, and that treatment might take a while. We'll have to see how we implement that, but the possibilities are pretty large here. An ultimate goal for the actor status system is to have it support multiple races as they get introduced into Star Citizen, and players will have to be aware that certain races breathe a different atmospheric composition. When they enter their ships and their territory, they need to be aware they cannot just remove their helmets. And if they have to deal with these races, as in transport them across the universe, they have to cater for those races' needs. They can't just shove them in a place full of oxygen. They might not like that. They might simply suffocate, or they might have adverse conditions to certain chemical elements that humans just love. It needs to feel real. You need to be aware of every little thing that's happening in the world. You need to be aware of this room might be completely depressurized. That's why we give the player tools. They have the mobi-glass app that they can use to check, oh, this has 0.1 poisonous gas, this does not have enough pressure, this oxygen is too much here, rather than just too little, and you might have a hyperoxia problem if you breathe that for a lot of time. So it's just, players need to be aware. We give them the tools to be aware of the environment, but they need to check and make the tactical decisions and the good choices that allows them to survive or not.
As you saw, stamina is but one component in the actor status system. Combining stamina with these other factors, like health and G-forces, makes your avatar feel more like a real person, not just a game character.
Yeah, this new system also creates a lot of interesting new gameplay scenarios. Players must consider how the armor they're wearing or a room's atmosphere condition might affect their stamina. Decisions like that will help make the game feel more immersive.
Well, that's all for today's episode. Thanks to our subscribers, it's because of you that we can produce all our shows and provide constant updates for the community. September Subscriber Flare will be released on Friday, so be sure to keep an eye out for it.
Very cool. And finally, a big thanks to all of our backers for their support.
Until next week, we'll see you around the verse.
Yes, I nailed it.
Yes! Jeremiah Lee, das ist schon geil. Lustiger Tipp. Ah, der Wolf im Dach. Ja. So. Lassen wir das nochmal ab da laufen. Wo fängt das an? Stamina. Ja. Ja. Also was haben wir jetzt wieder gesehen? Der wird ein paar Bugs gefixt. Ich glaube 18 waren es, oder was sie gesagt haben. Und das Interessante ist eigentlich wieder das, was danach kam. Also, dass 3.0 noch ein Weilchen braucht, das weiß jeder, der sich damit ein bisschen beschäftigt. Und das Interessante ist, wie gesagt, jetzt das, was sie da zeigen. Also auf 3.0 müssen wir eh noch ein bisschen warten. Und zwar braucht mein Star Citizen Ausdauer, und, um sich zu bewegen und um gescheit zu zielen. Und die Ausdauer braucht sich in dem Sinne, dass du stärker atmest, mehr Sauerstoff verbrauchst, und wenn der Sauerstoff leer ist, wirst du bewusstlos und stirbst. Ja, Wolf, TS, kann man machen. Und okay. So, TS.
Connected.
Wo haben wir denn? Wo haben wir denn? Da ist er gar nicht drin.
User entered your channel. Channel switched. User joined your channel.
Also.
So. Ja, ich habe mir gerade die Around the Verse Folge von heute Nacht angeguckt, von Star Citizen, wo es wieder darum ging, mit was für Bugs sie sich gerade beschäftigt haben für die nächste Version, die sie rausbringen wollen, und wie viel sie behoben haben, wo sie jetzt gerade stehen, was sie noch fixen müssen, bis es zu den NDA-Testern geht, die Evocati. Ich glaube, irgendwas um die 18 Stück haben sie wieder gefixt. Sind jetzt tatsächlich auch wieder runtergegangen von dem Wert. Das Ironische ist, manchmal... Ah, cool. Teamspeak, ich hasse dich. Komm schon.
Connected. Channel switched.
Teamspeak, ich hasse dich.
Das so. Ja. Von der.
Ja.
User in your channel timed out.
Wo war ich stehen geblieben gerade?
Weggetan von der. Punkt.
Was war davor? Nochmal.
Stamina. Auch die Bugs 3.0.
Ja, manchmal, wenn sie ein paar Bugs beheben, kommen andere Bugs zum Vorschein, die nochmal den Wert wieder nach oben steigen lassen. Obwohl sie eigentlich Bugs behoben haben, haben sie plötzlich mehr Bugs als vorher.
Ja, ist bei jedem Spiel so.
Ja. Ja, und was du jetzt da im Hintergrund laufen siehst bei mir, ist das Ausdauersystem, das mit Sauerstoff zusammengekoppelt ist, das zum einen zu Fuß funktioniert, als auch im Raumschiff, wo sie auch unterschiedliche Atemsysteme drin haben. Und zwar im Raumschiff gibt es bei echten Piloten den Fall, dass sie so irgendwie so komisch atmen. Und das haben sie mit im Spiel drin. Das ist eine Atemtechnik, also ich weiß nicht genau, wie es sich anhört oder wie sie es machen, die Piloten nutzen, damit sie nicht so schnell einen Blackout kriegen oder einen Redout. Also
ich habe mal eine Atemtechnik gehört, die beim Stream funktioniert. Anscheinend funktioniert das so die Atemtechnik richtig an, wenn es fühlst du dich, als wärst du in einem Drogenkonsum. Das
kann sein, ja. Der eine hat auch gemeint, der eine Audiotechniker, das siehst du später vielleicht nochmal, wenn wir so weit kommen, der hat sich selbst aufgenommen für den Sound, und der hat dann immer schneller, also per Beats per Minute, wo er so eine Anzeige hatte, hat er immer schneller geatmet, und irgendwann kam er zu so einem Status, dass er fast bewusstlos wurde, und er stand da in so einem Audioraum, wo er gerade aufgenommen hat. Also da hat er gar nicht erwartet, dass das einen wirklich so beeinflusst, wenn du eigentlich kontrolliert schneller atmest. Ja, jedenfalls, es kommt drauf an, was für Ausrüstung du trägst, also was für Waffen und zusätzliche Gegenstände, was für Rüstung du trägst, wie schwer die ist und wie schnell du dich bewegst und wie gesund dein Körper noch ist. Dementsprechend schnell oder langsam verbrauchst du Ausdauer, deine Herzrate geht hoch, was du unten links siehst bei Vitals, die Herzrate. Und dann kann es sein, dass du, wenn es einfach zu hoch wird, dass du wirklich bewusstlos wirst, auf den Boden kippst. Zudem verbrauchst du halt dabei Sauerstoff, und dein Charakter atmet auch schwerer. Das hörst du, und das siehst du auch anhand deiner Waffe. Wenn du zielst, bewegt die sich hoch und runter, hoch und runter. Und je stärker du atmest, desto stärker bewegt sie sich. Und hier ist es nicht so wie zum Beispiel in Battlefield oder sonst irgendwas, wo du einen bestimmten Bereich hast, in dem du dann triffst, sondern wirklich dahin, wo die Waffe zeigt. Dahin, wo das Rohr zeigt, dahin schießt du auch. Da gibt es keinen richtigen Spread in der Hinsicht.
Also kein Spray. Das ist kein Spray-Control.
Das ist dann wirklich der Rückstoß der Waffe und wie stark du atmest. Das beeinflusst dann deine Zielgenauigkeit. Und
so wie in COD, wenn du mit der Sniper ranzoomst, so, Shift gedrückt halten.
Ja, es gibt dann irgendwo diese Stelle, wo du auch ein Video siehst, wenn man sich das vielleicht später auch nochmal anguckt, wo er dann auch wirklich die Luft anhält. Und in dem Moment bewegt sich dann auch nichts mehr. Und das kannst du halt auch nur einen gewissen Zeitraum machen.
Nee.
Was du da jetzt auch gerade auf der linken Seite gesehen hast du die einzelnen Stati gesehen? Oder ja doch, Stati.
Warte, das da noch ein bisschen.
Ja?
Naja. Jetzt, ja.
Wo du siehst,
jetzt kommt der Typ.
Wo du siehst, was gerade aktiv ist, wenn er springt und so weiter, was dann halt Ausdauer verbraucht und so Sachen.
Ah, jetzt. So.
Also echt krass, worüber die sich da Gedanken machen. Und das ganze System funktioniert halt wirklich übergreifend auf auch halt im Raumschiff, beziehungsweise im Pilotensitz. Und du hast auch Anzeigen in deinem Smartphone, sage ich jetzt mal, das du an deinem Arm am Gelenk trägst, dein Mobiglas, wo du dann siehst, wie viel Sauerstoff du noch hast, wie lange das noch reicht und wie die Atmosphäre um dich herum ist. Und
der Pitbull.
Du kannst in Raumstationen oder in deinem Raumschiff die Räume auch selber bewusst dekomprimieren. Also zum Weltall hin öffnen. Das ist halt auch geil. Also die checken wirklich, welcher Raum mit was verbunden ist und ob da irgendwo ein Leck ist oder so und dann Luft entweicht. Und dann musst du halt gucken, dass du deinen Raumanzug anziehst.
Übrigens, Schreibfehler in der Beschreibung.
Echt? In der Beschreibung oder in der Beschreibung oder in der Überschrift?
Nee, in der YouTube-Beschreibung steht Twicht und statt Twitch.
Twicht, ja.
Twicht.
Twitch. Das ist auch bei Ding habe ich ja nicht drin stehen. Ja, was haben sie noch erzählt? Was war im Sprung ein bisschen vor kurz? Ich hätte mir vielleicht die Zeiten so ein bisschen aufschreiben sollen. Das werde ich demnächst noch anders machen. Ich will das jetzt jede Woche machen mit dem Around the Verse oder spezielle Videos, die sie rausbringen. Ein bisschen drüber quatschen.
Aber was hast du im WhatsApp geschrieben, dass du am Freitag irgendwie so eine Kamera hast?
Die soll heute kommen, aber die bringt mir noch nichts, weil ich noch das USB-Verlängerungskabel brauche. Das wird dann die Pause.
Was zoomst du dann an? Was wird dann gefilmt?
Das Aquarium. Das ist dann für die Pause. Wenn ich gerade nicht am PC bin, dann switche ich gerade die Szene und dann sieht man das Aquarium so lange.
Und hört uns im Hintergrund reden.
Ja, die noch da sind. Genau. Aber ich werde wahrscheinlich dann mein Mikrofon auch muten oder so. Ja, da sieht man so ein bisschen das Mobiglas. Was sieht man da Schönes? Du siehst den Sauerstofftank. Nee, Quatsch, den Raumanzug Sauerstoff. Den Tank, den du noch dabei hast. Den Treibstoff für EVA, also wenn du im Raumanzug durchs Weltall dich bewegst. Und wie viel Energie der Raumanzug auch noch hat. Außerdem, wie lang der Sauerstoff reicht.
Das erinnert mich gerade ein bisschen an Kerbal Space Program.
Ja, es ist ja auch eine Weltraumsimulation.
Yeah.
Und oben drüber siehst du auch die externe Atmosphäre, also die Atmosphäre um dich herum. Der Atmosphärendruck.
Gibt wahrscheinlich auch dann an verschiedene Arten von Planeten, oder? Also Gasplanet und so weiter.
Die Sauerstoffzusammensetzung von den einzelnen Dingern. Also du kannst später auch, das kommt mit der nächsten Version noch nicht, aber dieses System kommt mit Alpha 3.0 schon, was hoffentlich Ende September, Anfang Oktober kommt. Mit dem System hast du dann schon diese Ausdauer und dieses Sauerstoff drin. Danach kommt es auch noch hinzu, dass du kurzzeitige oder langzeitige Krankheiten davon bekommst oder vergiftet wirst, wenn du bestimmte Gase einatmest. Je nachdem, was halt in der Atmosphäre um dich herum ist. Und dementsprechend musst du das auch regelmäßig checken. Außerdem an Luftschleusen siehst du auch, was auf der anderen Seite ist, mehr oder weniger. Zumindest wirst du sehen, da stimmt irgendwas nicht mit der Atmosphäre. Entweder gibt es keine oder die Zusammensetzung ist scheiße. Wo waren diese eine Stelle, wo sie es so schön gezeigt haben? Die haben wirklich die Animation mit dem Atemsystem verbunden. Das, ich glaube, kommt das da?
The velocity of the entity transformed them into the parent space.
Nee. Es wäre geil, wenn es noch diese Mini-Ansicht gäbe. Man sieht sie die ganze Zeit nur babbeln. Da siehst du diese einzelnen Kurven, wo es dann den Blackout gibt. G-Stress. Wo waren das? Hier? Nee. Naja, irgendwo war's. Da quatscht der ein bisschen über das UI. Suit Oxygen. Oder, was man auch machen kann, das müsste mittlerweile schon geben. I Candy. Aber da, ich kann nicht schreiben. Around the verse. Oder auch noch nicht. Der hat noch keine Neues veröffentlicht. Schade war's. Ja. Aber was du, glaube ich, noch nicht gesehen hast.
Ich habe viel noch nicht gesehen.
Ja. Da hat er, glaube ich, auch nichts gemacht. Wie suche ich das jetzt? G-Star, genau, G-Star. GameStar.
GameStar. Was ist jetzt in Star Citizen spielbar? Oder? Nee.
Nee. Ich wollte eigentlich eine Zusammenfassung, aber da gibt es noch keine gescheite. Gehen wir einfach da drauf. Oh je, da ist jemand müde.
Nee, bin nicht müde. Ich bin nur vor 40 Minuten aufgestanden.
Ja, ich bin auch noch nicht so lang wach. So, da erklärt er ein bisschen dieses Face-over-IP. Da wo sie eine Partnerschaft mit Faceware gemacht haben, wo du mit einer Webcam die Charakteranimation von Gesicht triggern kannst. Und zwar live. Also dann
Ich bin ein Typ.
Dann sieht der andere Spieler wirklich live dein Gesicht, mehr oder weniger. Übertragen auf deinen Spielercharakter. Und der babbelt da so schön und kann sogar, und das ist ja noch ein Prototyp, also das ist noch nicht final, wenn er die Augenbrauen hochzieht, beziehungsweise erschrocken guckt, kann er richtig auch die Ohren bewegen, was du auch teilweise siehst, wenn du genau hinguckst.
Ohren wackelnd.
Mhm. Er kann alle möglichen Fratzen ziehen. So, jetzt mach mal die ganzen Gesichtsbewegungen, die du auch noch zeigen wolltest. Normalerweise macht er das da auch noch gleich. Wo ist er gerade?
So to explain how this all kind of works is that we've got a bunch of outputs that happen from the Live SDK technology, and then through a layer called motion logic, we map all of that to inputs of our runtime rig. And since every my blinks, it'll be Liam Cunningham's blinks.
Selbst die Augen, also die Pupillen tun sie tracken. Also wohin du guckst.
You can see even things like the ears moving when the scout moves.
Warte. Er blinzelt, er blinzelt. Sieht die Augenbrauen oben.
And we even track the eyes.
Beste Zähne zusammen. Knirschte
So
Zähne.
let's go ahead and show how actually different bits of rig logic might react a little bit differently, giving
Das ist
a different
übrigens
character.
Liam Cunningham.
So we've gone from a Tier 0 rig.
Der Schauspieler, der in Game of Thrones den Zwiebelritter spielt.
Kenn ich nicht. Aber ich glaube, ich weiß, wen du meinst. Der Typ, der eine Burg will? Nee.
Hm?
Ich kenne nur das Meme. Ich möchte eine Burg, perfekt. Wieso, weshalb, warum, keine Ahnung.
So, und was sie halt auch machen, also du kannst auch den Kopf drehen, wenn du das einschaltest. Da gibt es unterschiedliche Einstellungen, wo du wirklich sagen kannst, ja, wie heißt das nochmal? Track IR gibt es da, wo du normal am Headset oder an der Kappe so Infrarot-Sensoren hast. Alter, mit denen du wirklich den Kopf leicht drehst und dann bewegt er den Kopf halt mit. Und das sieht jetzt halt schon übelst geil aus. Und das funktioniert halt wunderbar dann, wenn du in einem Raumschiff sitzt. War dann das eigentlich gezeigt? Wo war denn das? Hier nicht. Bisschen weiter hinten. Theoretisch funktioniert das ganze System mit jeder Kamera.
Aber
es ist besser, wenn du eine hast, die mindestens 60 FPS rausbringt. Full HD logischerweise. Und die haben zusammen mit Faceware haben sie auch eine entwickelt, die speziell darauf ausgelegt ist. Also die extra guckt, dass das Gesicht schön scharf ist und dass es auch mit den geringsten Lichtquellen zurechtkommt. Also quasi nur vom Monitorlicht, wenn du im Dunkeln zockst. Die Frage ist dann halt, wie viel das Ding kostet, aber ich gehe mal davon aus, so um die 100 € wirst du für die Kamera dann schon hinlegen. Locker. Also was du halt richtig geil siehst, der guckt sich jetzt um. Und das macht er mit seiner Kopfbewegung. Kann selbst rollen.
das sieht irgendwie aus wie VR.
Ja, mehr oder weniger ist es das auch. Das ist so eine Unterstützung dafür. Und deswegen warte ich auch noch ein bisschen, bis ich mir eine VR-Brille hole. Weil ich die nächste Version abwarten will, in der vermutlich sogar Eye-Tracking mit drin ist. Oder je nachdem, wie groß das halt auf dem Gesicht sitzt, dass es vielleicht auch noch die Augenbrauen irgendwie miterkennt, sofern die halt nicht von dem Schaumstoff bedeckt sind. Also vom Rand der Brille. Ja, das ist schon echt geil. Ja. Was haben sie noch richtig Geiles gezeigt eigentlich? Ja, so viel eigentlich nicht mehr. Das einzige andere, was richtig hammermäßig war eigentlich das Landen, beziehungsweise der Kampf mit den wo haben wir es denn? Die haben doch, ja hier.
Nee, schau deinen Stream an.
Wo fängt es denn an? Ich glaube hier. Sound an.
Ich muss sicher den Sound einschalten, warte. So.
Das ist die erste flugfertige Fregatte. Diese erst eine Woche vor der Präsentation fertig zum Laufen gebracht haben. Allerdings wird sie noch weiter überarbeitet. Die ist noch nicht komplett fertig.
So far today, you've destroyed 2 of my ships, killed 2 of my men, and stole my black box. So, I'm gonna give you exactly 1 chance. Heading down. Scramble the
Erstmal gemütlich laufen.
Das ist knapp aneinander vorbeigeflogen.
So.
Boom. Ja, wobei man da dazu sagen muss, die Schiffe müssen nicht immer in so einer katastrophalen Explosion enden. Das kann auch sein, dass einfach einzelne Subkomponenten zerstört werden und das Schiff außer Gefecht setzen. Da muss keine große Explosion passieren, die alles vernichtet. Was bedeutet, dass theoretisch die Spieler an Bord von so einem großen Capital-Schiff, oder auch kleineren Multicrew-Schiffen, die Zeit haben, das Schiff nochmal zu reparieren. Oder die Chance. Vorausgesetzt natürlich, der Gegner lässt einem die Chance und ballert nicht weiter drauf. Außerdem in der Demonstration hatten sie jetzt auch keine Schilde aktiv. Das hätte nämlich dann nochmal einiges länger gedauert, der Kampf. Die waren komplett deaktiviert. Dann kommt noch hinzu, dass sie die Schiffe noch richtig balancen müssen, weil wie gesagt, die haben das erst eine Woche vorher zum Laufen gebracht. Ja, und ob sie wirklich alle Subkomponenten und Systeme schon wirklich drin hatten, bezweifle ich auch. Zumal normalerweise da noch die ganze Deckcrew rumrennt, die Engineers, die irgendwas reparieren oder auf der Brücke noch mehr Leute sitzen, die die Schilde und die Energieverteilung verwalten in Echtzeit während dem Kampf.
Warum erinnert mich das an Sea of Thieves?
Keine Ahnung. Ich weiß nicht mal, was es ist.
Ja, okay.
Das ist so ein Piratenspiel oder was mit
ja, so ein Piratenspiel, aber ist extrem lustig.
Ich glaube, ich habe davon schon mal was gehört, aber
nee, es kommt noch raus.
Ja, das ist, glaube ich, eine Early Access oder so. Aber das geht noch mehr in die Tiefe, weil also ich kenne so ein ähnliches Spiel, wo du auch auf einem Luftschiff ist das, also quasi ein Zeppelin, rumrennst und Sachen auch aktiv reparieren kannst oder Waffen bemannst und so Sachen. Aber das ist mehr so, ich renne hin, klicke einmal die Komponente an, muss ein bisschen warten, dann klicke ich sie nochmal an und dann repariert sie sich. Und so ist das halt hier nicht. Also da ist dann schon Skill gefordert. Also so Sachen wie beispielsweise, es gibt wirklich Stromleitungen oder Rohre oder irgendwas in die Richtung, die beschädigt werden und dann musst du den Strom umleiten. Dann musst du irgendwo eine Konsole, eine Abdeckung öffnen und da die Leitung anders verdrahten. Oder irgendwo fliegt eine Sicherung raus und du musst eine neue reinmachen. Oder ein Kondensator explodiert und du musst einen neuen einsetzen. Und das kann teilweise irgendwo im Schiff sein oder wirklich an speziellen Komponenten, die im Schiff verbaut sind. Beispielsweise am Schildgenerator fliegt ein Kondensator in die Luft. Und dann musst du den austauschen. Das Problem ist, wenn du den austauschst, ohne den Generator auszuschalten, kriegst du sehr wahrscheinlich ein Gewicht. Was natürlich dann mehr Zeit braucht, um den zu reparieren. Und so weiter und so fort. Das geht so weit, dass du auch an Bord wirklich Brände löschen musst und so Sachen. Und da musst du halt auch drauf achten, wenn da jetzt ein Brand ist, verbraucht der sehr wahrscheinlich dann auch Sauerstoff. Das heißt, du musst einen Raumanzug anziehen. Oder der Raum, in den du rein musst, ist dekomprimiert, weil ein Loch drin ist.
Deprimiert.
Ja, deprimiert. So, aber ich muss jetzt Schluss machen. Das eigentliche Thema habe ich ja jetzt schon lange rum, habt ihr noch ein bisschen was gezeigt, was ja jetzt da letzte Woche oder vorletzte Woche war.
Wie viel Gigabyte hat eigentlich das Spiel?
Aktuell sind sie bei 30, 35 Gigabyte sowas um den Dreh.
Ja, das geht noch.
Noch. Das Spiel ist aber noch lange nicht fertig.
Yeah.
Und wie alt
ja, wahrscheinlich werden sie später, wenn sie weiter sind, immer noch die Texturen immer noch gleich haben, aber trotzdem verkleinern.
Die werden das Spiel definitiv noch verkleinern auf der Festplatte, aber,
zum Beispiel
wie gesagt, wie groß Alpha 3.0 wird auf der Festplatte, das weiß ich jetzt auch noch nicht. Also ich gehe mal davon aus, dass es ein bisschen mehr ist, als es jetzt ist, logischerweise. Und das fertige Spiel, trotz Speicherkomprimierung, wird um die 100 Gigabyte verbrauchen.
Ja, zum Beispiel war es jetzt so bei Rainbow Six Siege. Ich weiß, das interessiert dich zwar nicht, aber egal. Und zwar war es jetzt so, dass alle Maps jetzt verschönert wurden und überarbeitet wurden und jetzt auch 2 Maps gelöscht wurden aus anderen Gründen. Aber auf jeden Fall ist das Spiel immer noch gleich groß wie vorher, obwohl es einfach verschönert ist. Sie haben einfach die Texturen verkleinert und manche Sachen gelöscht, die sie einfach nicht mehr brauchen. Plus haben sie 1300 Bugfixes behebt, also.
Zur Optimierung kommen da auch noch.
Und das ist die Firma Ubisoft, das muss man alles wissen. Ubisoft.
Ja.
Das ist wichtig.
Aber ich mache dann jetzt Schluss, weil ich muss noch zum Mittagessen mich fertig machen. Ich habe noch einmal Spätschicht
Zum Mittagessen fertig machen?
Nee, für die Arbeit.
Ja.
Ja, fürs Mittagessen mache ich mich auch hübsch.
Genau.
Ja. Und heute Abend werde ich wahrscheinlich nicht zocken können, weil ich komme heim, mache mich fertig wieder und fahre in die Stadt aufs Altstadtfest.
Altstadt.
Ja, dann pennt wahrscheinlich auch noch meine Freundin bei mir. Also da erst recht nichts mehr danach, wo ich gedacht hätte, ja, könnte man vielleicht noch. Aber ist auch gut. Und Samstagabend wieder dasselbe Altstadtfest.
Wieder?
Ja, ob sie da pennt, weiß ich nicht. Eventuell Samstag nach Mitternacht, weit nach Mitternacht, also so 2 oder 3 Uhr morgens.
Ja, da schlafe ich.
Oder halt
Sonntagsabend,
Sonntagsabend so ab 22 Uhr, schätze ich, werde ich sonntagsabends wieder online sein. Dann wahrscheinlich auch mit der weiteren Webcam, die ja heute kommt. Und morgen Vormittag soll das Kabel kommen.
Wenn mal nächste Woche Sonntag oder diesen Sonntag?
Diesen Sonntag.
Okay, das geht ja noch, weil Montag habe ich wieder Schule. Zumindest der erste Schultag.
Ja, ich muss auch früh raus. Um 4:45 spätestens muss ich aufstehen. Aber da kann ich noch ein bisschen zocken. Ja, aber wie gesagt, man hört sich.
Ja, man hört sich.
Und danke fürs Reinschauen. Falls sonst noch jemand zuschaut. Bis demnächst. Die nächste Woche wird es vielleicht auch ein bisschen alter Junge.
Ich strecke mich nur.
Ja, das hat sich anders angehört.
Ja, ich strecke mich trotzdem.
Wird es vielleicht auch ein bisschen koordinierter und weniger chaotisch sein bei dem Video. Vielleicht werde ich es auch, wenn ich die Zeit dazu habe, zwischendurch immer mal wieder anhalten und versuchen, was zu erklären oder mir laut Gedanken drüber machen.
Laut.
Sinnvoller.
Laut Gedanken, man nennt das Sprechen.
Ja, es heißt ja nicht umsonst Live-Reaction und Besprechung.
Nee.
So, aber wie gesagt, bis demnächst. Ciao.
Ja, ciao.